Welcome back to Witchfinder's Gaming Vault, and today I'm reviewing not one but two Commodore 64 games. They're both by Anirog software and they are Cybotron and Space Pilot. As you can see, very similar packaging, and that's one of the reasons I'm reviewing them together. And the other is that they're both clones of arcade games, and you can probably already work out what they are, but you'll soon find out if you don't know. So let's take a look at the fact files for both of these games. So Cybotron and Space Pilot were both released in 1984 in European territories. They're both published by Anirog software, as I've already said. Cybotron was developed by Darrell Etherington and Space Pilot was developed by Henrik Wenning. And the price I paid for these games was 40p each. I got them as part of a bundle many years ago. And the current going rate for these games on eBay, well, no copies of Cybotron have sold recently, but the copies that are for sale on eBay at the moment, they're asking £10 plus, which just seems crazy to be honest. And Space Pilot, recent copies of that have sold for about £3 to £4. So, two arcade clones released by Anirog software. Let's take a look at the packaging for both of them and then load the games up and see how they compare to the arcade originals. So here we have the packaging for the two games side by side, and as you can see, Anirog used a very consistent style for these releases. So you've got the Anirog logo at the top, different colour for the font but otherwise the same. You've got the name of the system at the bottom, and then you've got a nice round cornered box in the middle with the image for each game. And if we look at the spines of the two releases side by side, very consistent as well. You've got the name of the game in a pretty plain font. It says Turbo on there because they're Turbo Load games. You've got an Anirog logo at the top there and the Commodore 64 logo at the bottom on these ones. And on the back there, you've just got the address for Anirog software and some copyright information and things like that. So let's look at them in a little bit more detail now. So here's Cybotron. As you can see, it's got a nice image on there with some robots, some people running around as well. It's got a very big C and a very big N and the word Cybotron, and you've probably already guessed what game this is a clone of, but we'll see it in action very soon. And then looking at the Space Pilot one a little bit more closely, you can see there's some various sort of different planes from different eras flying around, biplanes and Spitfires, all those kind of things, and also a more futuristic plane in the middle there. I'm sure again you've already guessed what this is a clone of if you didn't already know. We'll load that one up second, so we'll look at Cybotron first and Space Pilot second. So here's a quick look at one of the tapes. I'm not going to show the other one because it's exactly the same. Pretty nicely printed label on it with the Anirog software logo and the name of the game, and that's printed on both sides as well, so no expense spared there by Anirog software. Let's now look at the inlay for Cybotron and the overview of the game. In the year 2001, the design was announced of the first robot with limited ability to think, blah 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 blah. Robots designed and manufactured the Trons, commanded by Hulks to squash humans, the brains with ultimate and logical mind, and armor droids, pulsars, enforcer droids, and electrodes as armaments. There are 100 waves in this game, including bonus waves. Write your name in the Hall of Fame. It's got loading instructions, controls a joystick only. Guessed what it is yet? I'm sure you know. And this will give it away because you can use two joysticks, one in port 1 to control the 8 direction movement and one in port 2 to control the firing. Yep, it's a Robotron clone. So yeah, you can also use one joystick. In that case, the firing is automatic in the same direction. And basically, all you've got to do is destroy the robots. The surviving humans can be recognised by the briefcase they carry, 3 lives with a bonus of extra life every 20,000 points. And basically, you've got a number of lives and all that kind of stuff as well. Robots are described as in detail in the enclosed leaflet, which I don't have, so I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe it wasn't actually released with a leaflet, or I've just not ever had it. So here we have the first of the two games loaded up, Cybotron, and as I've already mentioned, it's a clone of Robotron 2084, originally by Williams Electronics in the arcade, and they haven't really made any attempt to disguise that fact. The logo is very similar. It's got a high score table that's very similar as well, as you can see on the screen right now, and it's also got those circles sort of rotating around the border of the logo, which would have had the Williams logo in on the arcade version. You've got AR for Anirog presumably on this version. So yeah, no attempt to disguise the fact of what this game is. You can also see that it says it's designed by Darrell Etherington, by Anirog, the name of quality, or something like that. Blimey, that screen doesn't stay on for very long before it goes to the high score table. So I didn't have much chance to read that. There's no other attract mode, unlike the arcade game where you get some idea of how to play it. You don't get that on this particular clone. By Anirog, the name for quality is what I was trying to say earlier. So with that all done, there's not much more to say about the title screen. It's a rip-off of Robotron. Let's start the game. Now there are two options for starting the game, or for playing the game I should say. and the number of joysticks is either 2 or 1. It defaults to 2, which is slightly annoying because most people would probably only play it with 1. So with F1 we can change it to be 1 joystick. So basically what that means is that you're using the joystick to control the direction of the player, and you fire in the same direction. You can't fire in different directions like you can when you're using 2 joysticks. We'll get onto the 2 joystick mode in due course. I'm going to start off by playing with just 1, so let's see how it goes. So if you're familiar with Robotron, the idea of the... What the hell happened there? I don't know what's happened. Oh, I've paused. Oh, okay. Pressing fire when you're not in the 2 joystick mode, it clearly seems to pause the game. That's not a good start. So to start again, the idea of the game is to avoid all the robots, collect the humans, which are the little characters walking around with briefcases, and also avoid these electrodes, the shiny things which you can shoot to get rid of. You don't fire... Oh, what a disaster this is so far. You don't fire in any direction when you're standing still, which is immediately problematic, as you can't have a look at what you're doing and fend off the robots. So the red ones, they're the basic sort of seeking robots. They do have names in the game, I forgot what they are, but they just follow you all around the screen. The green ones, they're the Hulks. I definitely remember the names of those. And oh god, this is so hard when you're firing in the same direction. And that's game over. That was terrible. Let's give it another go while I'm trying to explain the game. So again, as I said, it defaults to 2 joysticks. Switch it back to 1. So yeah, each human that you collect increases a multiplier, so you want to try and get as many as you can so that you can get extra lives. Oh, what am I doing? Standing still. Usually I would, when I'm playing it with 2 joysticks, I would stand still and then shoot at stuff and then start moving around, but you've got to keep moving, otherwise you don't fire in any direction. So that's a terrible gameplay aspect of it. Oh, it's just ridiculous. I can't play it with a single joystick. It's just nigh on impossible. Look, I'm just expecting to shoot in the direction I'm pointing and it just doesn't work. I'll give it one more try with 1 joystick, but the sooner I get onto 2 joysticks I think probably the better. Right, let's give it another go. So remember to keep moving. So yeah, you can shoot the electrodes. Oh, I could just run into them because I'm not pointing in the right direction to shoot at them. Collect the humans, destroy the robots. That's what I'm trying to say is the aim of the game. And I'm making a terrible job of explaining it so far. You probably already knew anyway, so I'm probably just talking for no good reason really, which is usually the case. So yeah, you've also got these things that roam around the map and fire robots at you, these little red dots. Again, I can't remember what they're called, but they do that. So the main thing I'll say about this version of the game is, firstly, the sprites are huge. The player sprite and the enemy sprites are all huge, and also the gameplay area, the arena if you like, is very small. Particularly, it's not got much height to it compared to the arcade version. A lot of the screen's been taken up with the score readout, the high score and the wave number, and as a result there's not much room for any action to take place. That's been an absolute disaster so far. So what I'm going to do is switch to the 2 joystick mode, which is going to require a little bit of setup before I get started on that. So I've got my 2 joysticks set up. I've got 1 joystick plugged into each port. On the left hand side, as you'll see in a little picture-in-picture I'm doing here, I've got a zip stick which has handily got suckers that stick it to my desk. So I'm going to use that to control the movement of the player, and then I've got a Competition Pro, which is what I usually use. I'm going to use that to control the fire. So yeah, ideally what you want really is 2 joysticks that you can stick to the desk so you can separate them out. I haven't got 2, so I'm using the zip stick to kind of hold things in place, and then I can kind of push the Competition Pro against it. So I've got them quite close together, which I don't think is ideal, but let's see how we get on. So first I've got to press fire to start, and number of joysticks is set to 2, so then press a button to start. What's odd is the button to start the game when you're using 2 joysticks, the fire joystick button, the Competition Pro in this case, is like pressing the start button, but then to start the actual game you have to press a button on the zip stick instead, which is just massively confusing. So anyway, I'm going to press the button to start and let's see how we get on. So the first most important thing is I can now stand still and fire, and that's completed that first level immediately because there weren't many enemies on there. I don't think there's anywhere near as many enemies as there is in the arcade game on each level, and as I've said, the screen size is tiny and the sprites are huge, which is not ideal when the gameplay area gets a little bit cramped. But I'm already doing a lot better with 2 sticks than I would be with 1 based on what you've seen so far. So the sprites are, despite them being big, are quite accurate to the arcade game. Colours wise, they're pretty close, and the movement and everything's pretty good as well. Everything moves quite slow compared to the arcade game, I would say. It's not the best version in that respect, and certainly the size of the play area is the biggest issue compared to the size of your sprites. But here I am on wave 3 already, which is actually level 4 because for some reason it starts on wave 0, and that's game over. So didn't go amazingly well, but let's give it another try. Okay, so there's level 1 completed, and let's carry on and see how far we can get. Oh, this is the big problem. A lot of the time the enemies will spawn really close to you, and they're so big that it's kind of impossible to avoid them right from the start, so you end up losing lives immediately. It's much harder than the arcade game. I don't think I'd ever think I would have said that really, but it is. The Hulks, by the way, they home in on the humans and kill them. If you've never played the game before, that's what they do. Oh, it's so hard, it really is. Even with the 2 joysticks, it's really difficult to avoid anything. I'll continue to persist a little bit, but you're probably already getting bored of watching me play this game. Yeah, straight away I've just completed the first level without even trying. Just a couple of shots hit the robots again. But what I want to do is collect the humans, because that's where you get all the points. It's just really hard and kind of frustrating. The sounds, by the way, nothing like the arcade game. They don't have that just absolute barrage of noise that you get in the arcade game. So graphically it's pretty close. Look at that, I mean, you've just got no chance. It's really infuriatingly difficult, and not like the arcade game is, which is difficult just because of it's a hard game, but you know, you can move and negotiate away from the enemies quite easily. In this, you've just got next to no chance. There's just so little space to maneuver on the screen. It's not a very good version. I played some versions of it on the BBC Micro clones, which are better than this in terms of at least you've got a bit more play area to play in. Yeah, it's frustratingly hard, and not through really any fault of your own. It's just kind of impossible because of how big everything is on the screen and the size of the play area. So yeah, I mean, I'll continue one more game, but there's not really anything else to say about it. The movement of the player is just dreadfully slow as well. So yeah, for some reason it starts on wave 0, so that's odd. Oh, and I've completed the level without even realising. I've not collected a single human then. It's just really difficult to get around and avoid, because what you really want to do is just leave one robot moving around and then negotiate around it and pick up any remaining humans. It's really hard to not shoot them, except when they're all crowded in on you. This level's going a little bit better. What have we got left to kill there? There we go. So this is where in the arcade game it starts to get hard, and it's no different here, except you've just got no chance to shoot those 2 robots before they home in on you. I mean, in that case I ran into one, so that was my own fault. But yeah, it's just insanely hard just because of the size of the play area more than anything else. I've got a bit of a chance here, at least to get this one in the corner. Now I've just got to avoid all these things. Come here. There we go. This is as far as I've got. This is the brain level now, and the brains sort of infect the humans and then they charge at you. Oh, I ran into an electro, which is a bit of a shame because I was doing okay then. I mean, this is as good as I've done, certainly while I've been recording. Might get to level 6 here. I'm already on level 6 technically.
Oh, I don't want to shoot that last one, because if I can get around here, no, it's going to get me. Oh, it's so slow. But there's 3 humans to pick up here. If I can get them without getting shot, no, of course I can't. And yeah, I'm on the next level now, because that was a projectile that was still moving around the screen. But whoa, it's crazy difficult now, and I think that's game over. And I think you've seen enough. It's a pretty poor version of Robotron. Yeah, I can only reiterate what I've already said. The size of the play area is way too small compared to the size of the sprites, and as a result it's impossible to avoid anything coming at you, especially when it spawns really close to you when the level starts. I suppose I should add that the fact that it supports 2 joysticks to recreate the arcade game with the twin stick shooting is a good thing. It's good that they actually put the effort in to do that. It's just a shame that the actual game is really hard and unfair because of the size of everything on the screen. So nothing else to say about that. It's a poor version of Robotron, and I think I'll probably sell that because, well, apparently it can fetch up to 15 quid, or at least that's what people selling it on eBay seem to be trying to do. So yeah, I might end up selling that one. So let's now load up Space Pilot and hope that that's a little bit more fun to play.
So now a quick look at Space Pilot's inlay. Ever dreamt of roaming the open skies, engaging in dogfights with enemy fighters? Space Pilot with its breathtaking graphics will make that dream come true. There are 5 screens, starting with the biplanes of 1919 and ending with the fighters of 2001 in this 60k blockbuster. I don't know why it's 60k and not 64k, but there we go. So you've got to destroy the enemy craft, and then a large craft of the era appears and you destroy that, and then you transport through time to the next screen. Yeah, again, if you haven't guessed already, it's a Time Pilot clone. Robotron and Time Pilot, by the way, are 2 arcade games that I'm quite a big fan of, which is why I'm quite interested in to see how these conversions, or clones I should say, what sort of state they are compared to the original games. So it goes on in the inside of the instructions: you must survive 5 distinct historical periods. 1919, I don't know why 1919 and not during the First World War, but there we go. 1940, 1970, 1984 and 2001. Presumably that's the same as the original game, the arcade game. It tells you about the scoring. You've got to shoot down 56 enemy fighters. You score 100 points for each one of those. When you've destroyed them all, the large craft appears, as has already been mentioned, and you get 3,000 points for that. You can also get bonus points for destroying a squadron of 6 fighters, and there are parachutists to collect, where you get 1,000 points for the first, 2,000 for the second, and 3,000 for the third. So that all sounds very similar to the arcade game, so it could be a pretty good interpretation of it. We'll find out when it loads up.
Here we have the title screen for Space Pilot then, very obviously because it says Space Pilot in massive white letters at the top. You can see that you get a bonus pilot every 20,000 points and then every 60,000 points, pretty similar to the arcade game. You've got a few options there. Player 1 star is F1 or joystick up, I think that said, and player 2 star is F3 or joystick down, and we've gone into an attract mode, demo mode if you like, of the ship flying around. Not really shooting much, it's just kind of navigating through the other ships, which is interesting, I suppose. Let's get back to the title screen. Got some control info with F5, so let's have a look at that. So it's joystick in both ports, and it does actually say in the instructions that you can have a joystick in both ports and control the player with one joystick and fire with the other. I don't know why you'd want to do that, that seems complicated. I guess just recreating the arcade feel of having a joystick and a button in 2 separate hands or something like that. But anyway, I won't be doing that, I'll just be playing with a single joystick. So the only other options are pausing and restarting, which is with the run stop. So let's get on and start the game, I think. So slightly annoying you can't press fire to start the game, but I've started with F1 for a single player game. So it's very similar to the arcade game. You fly around, you've got to shoot the enemies, you've got to shoot 56 of them. One thing it's missing that's in the arcade game is a sort of status of how many enemies you've got left to kill. You've also got to collect the parachutists when they appear on screen. You get 1,000 for the first one, 2,000 for the second, 3,000 for the third. I don't know if it goes up after that. It does in the arcade, I'm not sure if it does in this version of the game or not. So nice effects with some minor parallax because you can fly behind some of the clouds and in front of others. Everything moves quite slowly, certainly on this level. The enemy planes are very slow. Sound effects are pretty unsimilar, I would say, if that's a word, to the arcade. definitely not very similar in that respect, but the graphics are pretty similar. I think the enemies in the first level on the arcade version were green, so that's a little bit different, but they certainly do the job, and the main ship is very similar to the arcade version indeed. Also, one thing to note, which you won't be able to really see, but the controls are very good. A lot of the clones of this game use kind of rotational controls, so you can rotate left and right, and to get back to go, so for example if I'm going left and I want to go right, you have to rotate all the way round. But actually this one recreates the arcade controls really well, because if I push up I go up, and if I push down, which I wouldn't do there because I'd crash into something, but if I push down I can rotate straight from being down to up, which is just like the arcade game. You don't have to rotate through the left and right, so that's good. It really does recreate the control of the arcade game very well, so I'm quite impressed by that. Ooh, no, I just got blown up by a rogue missile. So yeah, I noticed this game also has time, which is a bit strange. Does it have a time limit, or is that really actually just the status of running down the number of enemies you've got to destroy? I mean, it's getting quite low now, so when it runs out, what's the truth of that time bar? I mean, I haven't run out of time and lost a life, so I think actually what that is the amount of enemies I've killed. I don't know. Time's run out, but the boss enemy hasn't appeared yet either, so I don't really know what that's all about. Hard to say. Oh, here we go, here it is. So I'm still not sure. Maybe it's just appeared, or maybe that time thing was actually the amount of time, the amount of enemies, sorry, remaining. But there we go, got 3,000 for the Zeppelin, and I zap to 1940, where it's more of the same but a little bit more difficult, I assume, because that's how it is in the arcade. So now the enemies are green. Ooh, it's slowing down a little bit with this many enemies on screen. That's a bit of a shame. Ooh, really slow there. Once you blow a few of them up though, wow, that's an impressive sound for an extra life. Oh yeah, of course you get slightly more challenging enemies, although that looks a little bit more like me, but in green, whereas it would have been a larger kind of double length ship, like a bomber kind of thing in the arcade game. But again, it's retaining all the gameplay of the arcade game reasonably well. It is a little bit slow, but you have got the sort of slightly more challenging planes, along with the sort of drones that you just need one shot to destroy. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, overall it's a pretty good version of Time Pilot, really. You can't complain about it too much. I'd certainly, as a Time Pilot fan, which I have to say I wasn't a Time Pilot fan when I was a kid because I never played it, but if I had been and I'd bought this game on the Commodore 64, I think I'd been pretty happy with it. It does slow down a lot though when there's a lot of enemies on screen. Solution to that, blast all the enemies, of course. It's quite easy at this point as well. There's not a lot of bullets being fired by the enemies, generally speaking. There's a few now and then, but overall I would say it's a little bit easier than the arcade game. I don't know how many enemies I've shot. As I said, it's not entirely clear whether this time bar is actually the number of enemies. I guess we'll find out in a second, because I've worn it down to the bottom, or it's gone down to the bottom. So is the boss enemy for this second stage going to appear? Well, not evident as yet. There's a lot of buzzing. No sign of a boss enemy just yet. I mean, it could be about and I just haven't found it yet, but usually it just kind of materialises on screen. It is a squadron, by the way, of 6 planes, which you do get 2,000 points for destroying. Again, it's quite easy. Here we go, here it is. So again, it's not clear really whether when the time runs out, that's when the boss appears, or whether it's time and nothing happens. Basically, it's not really clear, but there we go. That's level 2 completed. Nice and easy so far. Only lost the 1 life from flying into a bomb quite early on. So here we are in 1970, which is helicopters. and they fire bombs, missiles I should say, which again aren't proving too difficult to dispatch as yet. He says that as he nearly flies into one. There we go, one of them's got me. Don't actually mind that too much because I do like the game, but there's not much more to say about it, so in terms of demonstrating the game I've done a reasonably good job of that already. Oh, there goes another life, which means I'm down to my last one. I need 10,000 points to get my next extra life, so let's try and work towards getting that and progress to the next stage. It's become a little bit more challenging, but not massively so. Obviously I lost a couple of lives, so a little bit more. I say this looks bad news though, because these things are coming towards me. Oh, that was close. Oh, get away from me, Mr. Helicopter. Stop following me. Oh god, this is, again, the slowdown's not great either. We're back in the hunt territory from my last review video here. Oh no, that's a shame, because I've just blown it up and then it's game over. Ah well, there we go. There was 3 levels of Space Pilot which were very similar to Time Pilot. Don't really see much point in playing it again. Not really sure what's happening now. There we go. Doesn't put a high score up on screen or have any high score table, which is a little bit of a shame. But apart from that, pretty good version of Space Pilot. Much better than the Cybotron clone of Robotron, it has to be said. So there we go. That's the 2 games reviewed. Not much more to say about them really. I would certainly have been happy getting this Space Pilot clone of Time Pilot, not so much with Cybotron, the clone of Robotron. If you've got any thoughts about these 2 arcade clones, then let me know in the video comments as always please, and that'll do for another review video I think.
That was an interesting look at 2 different arcade clones on the Commodore 64. Now it's time to draw another game out at random to play next time around on Witchfinder's Gaming Vault. Let's see what comes out of the tin this time. And it is a Star Wars TV game, R2-D2 TV game. This is based on the movie Revenge of the Sith. There's 4 or 5 games on it. So next time around I'll be plugging in a plug and play TV game and playing that and seeing what it's like. Thanks very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.